All right. It's that time of the week again. Time for another podcast. We've been doing this for a little while now. I feel like I've been doing it longer than I have, but I guess there's only been 5 podcasts. This is your FTP Podcast number 5. I'm not sure how I can count to 5 any better than Dave Chappelle did back in the day.
I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Anything you say, 5.
We got plenty of stuff to cover. We'll talk some Little B. We'll talk Steph Curry. We'll talk some NFL rule changes. All that. Stay tuned. Stick with it. Let's go.
This is the FTP Podcast.
All right. NFL landscape. Obviously, every week I talk a lot of football. I'm going to try and keep this brief. They made a couple of rule changes. They moved the PAT back. You're going to see some teams obviously paying a little bit more attention to kickers now, but I don't think it's going to make that big of a change. The defense can return a 2-point conversion for a 2-point score themselves. This is a big change for the NFL. And now there's also the possibility of a 1-point safety if the defense gets a turnover and they go back into their own end zone and get tackled. So then that'll be a first for the NFL for a 1-point safety. So yeah, those are the NFL rule changes. Obviously, they're going to make things a little bit more difficult. And if you leave it up to Chip Kelly, things are going to get even more crazy. But I don't know how all that's going to work. Obviously, I don't trust Chip Kelly to change anything. But it will make things a lot more interesting. All right, enough football. Let's move on. Little B and the Rockets. Now, obviously, the Rockets are struggling mightily with the Warriors through this series. And after all, the Kevin Durant, he had his fair share of struggles since Little B claimed he cursed him in 2011. Well, now Little B's claiming he cursed James Harden for stealing his eating, motion, I guess you'd call it, regardless. And all of a sudden, now the Harden and the Rockets are really struggling. Harden had a really rough game 3. So, is this curse real? Is Lil B just crazy? Is it a coincidence? I don't know, but if I'm an athlete, I'd venture to almost say that I want to stay on Little B's good side, because now Kevin Durant obviously has had some injury problems since the supposed curse from the base god, of course, and now Harden has the curse on him. Now let's see if this is consistent. Can the Rockets bounce back like they did against the Clippers? That would be the Everest of all stories if they found a way to do that, but that's something I'll talk a little bit more about in a couple of minutes. But if I was an athlete, I'd venture to say I'd just try and avoid Little B's, wrath. Just like if you're a football player, you kind of want to try and avoid the Madden curse that was stringing athletes along for a few years. But I guess it's subsided a little bit now. All right, we'll take a quick break, and then we'll be back with plenty more stuff to cover.
You are now listening to the sounds of the FTP Podcast.
If you don't know me too well, one thing you probably don't know is I'm a pretty big women's basketball fan. So we're going to take a look at the Illinois basketball program. They've been having some issues. The athletic program's been under quite a bit of scrutiny the last couple of months after allegations of multiple athletes. A former offensive lineman from the Illini has accused head coach Tim Beckman of an abuse and misuse of power and forcing him to play through injuries that ultimately ended his playing career. Now, a week later, the women's basketball program has come under fire for similar allegations. An assistant coach has since departed the staff, leaving more questions on the table. Well, we reached out to a former Illini women's basketball player, Ebony Mitchell, to get her thoughts on and her concerns on the allegations.
A coach's job is to bring the best up out of you, and it's their livelihood. So at the end of the day, every coach is depending on the 18-year-old to give them a living. So, Of course, it's going to be some times where you're going to be pushed to the max, and you just have to remember this is what you came here to do. You came here to represent yourself, your family, and ultimately the university.
And to that point, I guess, when you say you're there to represent yourself, your family, and things like that, do you think it's pressure on a player if a coach says, because one of the allegations that were made, a player was asked to play with like a broke toe or a broken foot or something like that. Do you think it's pressure on the player because they're on scholarship to say, okay, I guess I will suck it up and try to go out there and play?
I don't think it's any pressure, but if you played basketball or your respected sport for the amount of time needed to get a full ride to any major university, you've played through injuries. So, I mean, it's kind of with the player and the coaching, because I've never met a player that hasn't played if they couldn't play.
Right.
So, I mean, it goes hand in hand. It's one of those things that you can't really speak on unless you have the facts from both sides and if you were there. So it's kind of like you have to sit back and wait and see how everything pans out. And it's just one of those things.
The new president, he was saying coming into this situation, he was going to basically, he didn't take sides for the players or the coaches, but he did say he was just going to wait it out and see how things shake out. Now, I don't know if you've had any communication, any connection with any of the current players or some of those that were there after who played for the Coach Boylan.
I haven't had any interaction, but I do know a couple of players who are seniors that actually played with me and shared my time there. Haven't had a chance to reach out to anybody, but, you know, it's one of those things, like I said before, like it's one of those things where you just can't really pick a side. You just have to sit back and wait to see how it pans out. But I know I got a chance to speak to some former players, you know, that played with me and even before me. And, you know, it's just one of those situations where you never want to see your university in a bad light. This is a place where we gave our blood, sweat, and tears to, and you never want to see it in a bad light. So it's just really one of those things that we're waiting as alumni, former players, to make sure, you know, everything is good. But at the same time, we don't want a place where we gave our all to where, you know, future players are being mistreated.
The university hired a law firm from Chicago to investigate the allegations, and hopefully they'll be able to get to the bottom of this. You can listen to our full interview with Ebony on SoundCloud or on the YouTube channel.
Hey, how you guys doing? This is Ebony Mitchell, former University of Illinois women's basketball player, and you're listening to the FTP Podcast.
All right, let's jump right back into some more basketball. The NBA Conference Finals are both pretty light right now. I mean, seriously, these series are lopsided. The Cavs have just simply been dominating the Hawks. The Hawks can't even stay healthy. Carroll got hurt early. He's been able to play, but he's nowhere near himself. And so LeBron's just been dominating from there. And now Korver's out for the rest of the series with that ankle injury. And his three-point shooting has been a big part of the Hawks' offense. And I mean, seriously, it's such a huge part that they force him the ball even when he's not hitting. I mean, a 49% three-point shooter during the regular season, of course he's a big part of your offense. So that loss is just astounding. I think at this point, it's a given the Cavs are going to walk through. I didn't really think the Hawks had a chance already, but now I know they don't. And I've been on record multiple times saying I'm not a Hawks believer. I'm surprised they made it this far. I fully believe that if John Wall had not injured his wrist, they wouldn't have made it past the Wizards, but they did. So that being said, the Cavs are going to the finals. On to the next, we're talking about Rockets and Warriors. And right now, the Warriors have just been giving the Rockets the blues. My God. I mean, there's no other way to explain it than they're cursed. I mean, they came close in game 2, and literally, we all knew Harden was going to take the shot, and he just couldn't get one off. That was ridiculous. And then game 3, the Warriors came back and literally drug them out of the building. There's not much you can say about that except for, you know what? If I'm James Harden, I'm giving Lil B a call, and hopefully, maybe, just maybe, he'll take the curse off of me. All right, a couple more sports notes we want to hit on. Michael Sam, he's headed north of the border. He's going to suit up for the Alouettes in the CFL. Warren Moon did it and became an NFL Hall of Famer. Can Sam? I mean, there's a history of some NFL guys. I mean, some CFL guys making it to the NFL. I mean, the Saints have Devlin Bowe right now, who is regarded as one of the top corners in the CFL. Duron Carter, Chris Carter's son, he's in the NFL now. He's on a rookie contract. Brandon Browner came from the CFL. That's another CFL guy. There's a pretty large history of CFL guys that have been able to make it south of the border. Can Sam? I don't think so. I've been on the train of he was never going to be allowed to succeed in the NFL regardless of his sexuality. I just think he's a subpar athlete that made it at the collegiate level based on effort. There are plenty of guys that graduate just like him every year in college and never see an NFL career, simply put, because you need to be an elite athlete, an elite specimen to hang in there at the NFL level. So I don't think Sam ever had a chance, personally. Obviously, he did put up great numbers, but what does that really mean? All right, a little baseball. The Texas Rangers are activating Josh Hamilton this week. Josh hasn't appeared in the majors at all this season. He's been recovering from shoulder surgery and a self-reported alcohol and drug relapse, which sparked his return to the Rangers following a 2-year stint with the Angels. So, I mean, obviously, if he's ready to go, he was a good player. Can he be a good player again? I think so. Why not? A little UFC action. Chris Weidman defended his middleweight title against Victor Belfort. The fight lasted just one round as Weidman won by a TKO to remain undefeated and the champ. There was also a throwdown for the light heavyweight title, which was vacated by John Jones. Anthony Johnson, who was scheduled for the fight Jones for the title, took on Daniel Cormier. And this one would last 3 rounds as Cormier wins this one by submission. After winning the title, Cormier had some words for the former champ John Jones.
Daniel Cormier, the new UFC light heavyweight champion. How's it feel, sir?
Joe Rogan, no disrespect to you or the 16,000 people in this arena, but I have a message for one man. John Jones, get your together. I'm waiting for you.
Cormier lost to Jones in January for this same title. All right, we're about to wrap things up. It's about that time. Let's get our moment in sports history. NBA League MVP Steph Curry passed Reggie Miller for the most three-pointers in a single postseason during Game 3 of the conference finals against the Rockets. I mean, obviously, he hasn't been missing. I mean, the boy's just been on fire. But the previous record was 58. It currently sits at 59, and he's still rolling. So I'd expect him to expand that well past 60. Thanks again for tuning in. Obviously, we want you to keep listening. Let us know what you want to hear. If there's anything you want to hear on next week's, you can hit us on Twitter, Instagram. Just type in From the Press Box and you can find us. Remember, you can check us out on YouTube too and on SoundCloud. If there's anything you want to hear, you let us know and we'll get it in there. All right. Thanks for listening. Deuces.